Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Wednesday, November 18th at 18:01 in the evening. Let's make this easy on all of us. That's a bit better, but I think the ambience is shot. I got feeling the need to tell stories. Now, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm waiting for Liz and Henry to come over because Liz said they will be over. She's up at the wine and food thing up at Kroger's here up on just north of Lewis Center Road tonight with her girlfriend. And they're gonna. I got a piece of mail for Henry tonight or today that needs. He really wants to get this. But I got thinking about. I got a shave for Liz. I mean, you gotta look for good for your friends. And then I got thinking about John Vasco. He's now dead, so I can talk about him. Fine thoracic surgeon. You've heard me speak about him before. This may go on a while. We'll see. Let's see. Let's get this. He used to sing a song in the operating room while he was sewing in vein grafts into the coronary arteries. And it was something like, I have often walked down this street before, but my peckers never stood this high up for before. All at once am I 7 stories high when I walk down the street where you live. Well, he liked to do a lot of song parodies. That was one of them. He also liked to use lots of oddball terms for his things, like, a Strombolia on a Stribnitz was like a little wadded up tiny sponge that you'd use in an instrument holder to wad away the blood by the where the anastomosis is in progress, but they can't really see. He was a dentist. He initially had trained as a dentist, and while he was training as a dentist, he was a cab driver in Cleveland, Ohio. And there's this maybe apocryphal story, and I say maybe apocryphal story. So all you libel lawyers and slander lawyers, go away. He would tell this on himself from time to time, that a fellow tried to hold him up in his cab, but made the mistake of trying to shoot him from in front of his cab. End of story. End of story. What a fine man. He would roam the halls at night and howl like a wolf. He would roam down the halls on the 8th floor and the 7th floor where most of his surgical patients were located. And he'd go, woo! he wrote the same admitting note on almost everybody. He had cardiac, coronary artery disease patients, and he had valvular disease patients. And so if he had a valvular disease patient, then he would write the valvular disease admitting note. Such and such, mitral stenosis, aortic stenosis, aortic insufficiency, mitral insufficiency, here for. Okay, he'd write that note. And then for the coronary artery disease patients, he would write, severe, progressive. Let's see. What was the term at that time? It was progressive angina. I mean, there was some. It was like it was really urgent to have your operation. Well, actually, in most of his cases, that was the case.
So your
there were a lot of left main cases. Let's put it that way. So he always liked to send me down as the junior intern, the first year resident, lowest guy down there, to talk to what he called the mole. Go down and talk to the mole. Well, Dr. Molnar, a.k.a. the mole, is dead now as well. But Dr. Molnar was, at that time, one of the earliest interventional. Well, he wasn't interventional because they didn't really have the balloons and shit at that time. But, going in and being an aggressive catheterization guy to define things. And both these guys like to play this game with the younger guys. And, in Vasco would say, take these x-rays down and present them to Dr. Molnar. Right. So I'd go down. Of course, he knew. Dr. Molnar knew why I was there. I'd say, Dr. Vasco wants me to show you these things. He wants to see if you think that this needs to be operated upon. Well, Molnar already squirted the guy. I mean, it's like this charade. Actually, it was an educational thing. It wasn't a charade. It was education for Joe. And I realize that now. But at the time when I was sleep deprived and feeling like hell most of the time, I just wanted it all to sort of, but that's not the point, is it? I realize that now. 40 years later. It's that. And then there was a time when Dr. Vasco operated on Dr. Molnar for his aortic stenosis. Well, there's life coming around in a full circle, isn't it? These guys are all dead. I can talk about this. This is not unethical. I try to be really careful about that stuff, by the way. Both two of the finest human beings I've ever met in my life and worked under or worked with. And so, I've become distracted from my flow. Anyway, I had my haiku book open here, thinking that maybe it might be just time to just work through these things relatively straightforwardly through. Well, it's just an ER haiku. Well, I'll tell you an ER story about John Vasco. He had patients all over Southern Ohio. We called we called it the High Triangle, from Steubenville to Columbus to Portsmouth, the Ohio Triangle. And he lived down in Chillicothe. And he had a large farm. He raised Arabian horses and so forth. And he and Bill Evans, William Evans, also a vascular surgeon, who's also now dead. I did an obituary of him on my YouTube channel. You can look at it. Anyway, they were down in that area, and you know, and Vasco's patients were just massively loyal to him. Well, you have to be if somebody saved your life, don't you? And one of these guys, you know, I mean, he had been following a guy that had an expanding abdominal aneurysm, and he was going to operate on it here presently, but turns out this guy ruptured. So rather than calling the squad, he called Vasco, and Vasco said, go to this particular ER somewhere down in the Triangle. And so Vasco shows up. You know, they don't know him from Adam's off Ox. I mean, he's not on staff at their hospital or their joint or wherever the fuck it is. And he says, hello, I'm Jack Vasco. Do you mind if I practice some medicine in your ER? And eventually the guy ended up at Ohio State, and we operated on him, and he did okay. There was a lot of intervening activity, but that's what happened at the end. So, you know, I said, you know, an ER haiku, 11 o'clock, back pain brings me here, can't watch the Tonight Show. You know, you'd get so many of these people, you know, running 11 o'clock back when Johnny Carson was on. Remember him? No, he's history. He's gone. Nobody remembers Johnny Carson. You know, it's just, you know, if their back pain gets really bad, a lot of these folks will come in somehow. I don't know, maybe they don't do that now. Maybe they're filtered out sort of like, maybe they've got like this sort of perimeter that filters them out before they get into the actual ER proper at Ohio State. But at that time, they'd come in, you know, 11 o'clock on a Friday night, you know, around the time, you know, Johnny Carson came on, you know, it's like 11:30 more properly. It's like, yeah, it's like they came in to watch Johnny Carson. A lot of these people would come in, sign in, and then they'd leave before they were even seen. It's like it was like a social situation. It's like a social center. A social center by the old Tangi River. Well, good luck getting in there now. I mean, it's like, you know, it's crammed. I don't know how anybody, you almost have to go single file to get into that joint now. But that was the reality of the thing. An ICU haiku. Crowding family, standing around mom crashing. Docs can't do their job. Yeah, they did. Boy, and yet some of these family members had these huge asses. You couldn't get near the crashing mom. I mean, you could see she was cacking off, but you know, good luck getting close to her. A children's hospital haiku. Oh, here, let me get this. Children's hospital. Oh. I don't want to lose stuff. I don't want to lose this material. Children's hospital haiku. Bald kid in the hall, waiting for the poison line. Hope the tumor dies. Well, yeah, I was actually, fortunate, although the kids weren't fortunate. I was fortunate to have a fairly extensive experience with, the three big cancers, childhood cancers at Children's Hospital when I was a resident and a student. Neuroblastoma, the muscle one, rhabdomyosarcoma, and what's the other one? What's the other one, Joe? Well, it'll hit me at some point, but yes, there's three big childhood cancers, and I can't remember the third one because that's just I'm 42 or 3 years out. I don't make any money off it, so that's why I don't remember it. That's very venal of me, but that's just the damn truth. It's shameful. I apologize to all the people out there whose kids have had this unmentioned cancer. Yeah, but no, I mean, and then there were also a lot of where they had the congenital TE fistula things where they had to dilate. I had a lot of experience with that. I'll read you this, but I have no idea what it refers to right now. I might remember it. A morbidity and mortality haiku. Well, that refers to M&M conferences on Friday afternoon. Where you're supposed to report your complications and deaths and things in the surgery service or anesthesia service. Belly full of shit. You seem not to give a damn. Get your coat and go. I remember it now, and I will tell you this, and then I will stop. Oh. When I was in medical school, on Saturday mornings, just because I didn't have air conditioning and the medical school did. When I'd first started, this is in July, August of 1972. I went in, and the big lecture hall was very nice. It was very quiet. It was very big. The seats were very comfortable. They had, the desks, the little flip over desks actually were big enough to actually do things on. And I went in and I wandered in on what happened to be, which I didn't know what it was when I did wander in on. It was a morbidity and mortality conference on Saturday morning with Dr. Zollinger, who was then chairman of the surgery department at Ohio State University, conducting it. And there were several. First of all, I didn't know what it was initially, and then I figured it out. And then you had this fellow named Chino. Now, I imagine Chino is still alive somewhere. So, Pache Chino. He was at that time also became next year a thoracic surgery resident. And the patient being presented was a man who had, Dr. Zollinger's regimen was everybody got daily weights every day at 6 a.m. Every day at 6 a.m. or 6:30. Every day. Daily weights. Because if you've got a bowel obstruction or you've got some unobserved heart failure, you can tell by the daily weights at the same time of each day what's going on. When the patients are basically the same state of undress or dress, basically they're undressed, it's the hospital. And so the salient aspect of this case was Dr. Zollinger was flipping through the chart. I'll tell you another story about him flipping through the chart at another time. But he was flipping through the chart and he says, this person gained, let me think, pints a pound the world, 16 pounds in 4 days.
Oh.
Pints a pound the world around, and pace to you guys in the UK, but that's the way I was thinking about it over here. So what that means is that's 16 pints. So let's see, 8 pints. Let's see, 2 pints a quart, 4 pints a gallon. So boy, I have a hard time doing math in my head sometimes. But anyway, that's 2 gallons. He says, Zollinger says, he says, you mean to tell me that you didn't realize that you had 2 quarts of warm liquid stool rolling around in this woman's abdomen for, however many days, 2 days, I think. Whatever it was. Anyway, I mean, they didn't catch it. And, and he was doing this to Chino. I mean, the senior resident on the service. On and on. Because he could be really relentless about stuff. And he says, and you want to go into thoracic surgery? Probably just as well. So sit down. Fine. So then he says, who was the medical student on this case? And this got really brutal. He says, didn't this trigger anything in your head? Didn't this trigger in your mind? You mean, didn't this individual seem sick to you? It's like right down in front. It's in a big amphitheater setting. Now, admittedly, I may be the only person up toward the back row watching this. So he says, and this tells you when at the time. This tells you the time of the world. He pulls a dime out of his pocket. He says, there's a payphone in that central room. He says, go in there and call your mother. Go in there and call your mother and tell her what a dumbass you are because you could have almost stopped somebody from being really sick and you didn't. And that maybe you ought to rethink. It's just on. I really. The guy, you can just see the kid. I shouldn't call him a kid. He's a fellow. He's a man. I mean, I got my MD degree. I was 23. Shit, I was a man. I had a license to kill you if I fucked up. That's the. It's yeah. And he did. He went out and he called his mother. So he says, what'd she say? He says, I can't tell you. Well, that was my first introduction to M&M conferences, morbidity and mortality conferences. Or as we like to call them, size and lies. Size and lies. So, on that note, I'm going to let that one slide and say bye-bye.